Hello and welcome to a Taylor's Tales podcast. This is Chris's Corner. I'm your host, Chris Taylor, and I'm back this week with a brand new podcast. This week, it's just on the fly. This isn't even Chris's Corner, you may have noticed already. I am currently in Bristol with friends. Once again, a friend of mine, Jonathan Edwards, has graciously allowed me to record within his new home. And yes, I have taken a spot to basically record my podcast on the weekends when I have the time. So if there is one thing you do learn from this podcast is you always have the time to do things. You make the time. If you enjoy something, you make the time to do it. It doesn't matter whether it collides with a schedule, you make the schedule. You get up, you do it. Now, saying this, I have cocked up slightly because I did have a full week off work last week, which I could have recorded in, and I could have prepared this podcast, but I do like to do them on the fly. I do like to have more of an emotional attachment to each one that has me editing it on the Sunday and recording it on the Saturday. This isn't Saturday, this is Sunday morning, and so this will come out later today. And yes, the people listening right now are probably like, man, you're the most, for someone who's just saying to make time, you're the most organized person there is. Hypocrisy is my middle name, my friends. I think we've got this from the first podcast onwards, so let's just carry on down that hypocritical, that's not even a word, hypocritical route down the street. Anyway, how are you? How's things? You good? Obviously, I'm talking to those listening, but I hope you're well. I hope things are going well for you. Life is good for me. The sun is shining. It's a beautiful day here in Bristol. It's been a beautiful weekend here. Yesterday, I lived in Bristol, for those who don't know, for 3 years, and then a placement year when I was doing my degree. And this is the first time I've been back since coronavirus started, so it's very strange for me. It's also a little bit nostalgic, a little bit, sort of vibes of being back here, but also it's nice to see Bristol from a different perspective, because for the majority of the time I was just studying. There was no time for me to basically go see the niceties of Bristol, so it's nice to come back on a semi like vacation-y sort of thing to enjoy the scenery. Got to see the suspension bridge. I've never actually been to the hill to see the suspension bridge before. I know I lived here for 3 years. How did you not do that, Chris? And well, again, priorities. I think that's the main thing here for me. It's a big thing where I've prioritized work over going to see things like that. And I also basically don't know Bristol, I've realised. I have known areas, I don't know street names. If you tell me where something is and you show me a picture of it, I'll get it. But if you tell me a name of it, I will not get it for shit. But nonetheless, anyway, enough about me babbling on about Bristol. At the moment, this is just a nice update podcast. What's going on? We haven't done one of these in a while. It's been a lot of me just pumping out content with either edits with the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, Joe Rogan, Jordan Peterson, and Jocko Willink. I wonder if you can guess who's going to be the fourth of the Four Horsemen. Some of you may know already. It should be fun to release that one in 10 episodes time, and we'll see what happens. But yes, I have a schedule and something that I think you'll be interested in. The next few ones are organised and ready to go. I'll give you a couple of them now. One of them will definitely be Pure Memes Part 2. Because that is just far too much fun to make, and I think it's so stupid, but it just gives everyone a bit of a laugh, whether with me or at me, it doesn't matter. It's going to be a good time. And then I'm looking at doing a sort of nuanced podcast of you like tackling your inner thoughts. So it's going to be me interviewing me, and I know that sounds super meta and very self-centered in many ways, shape or form, but stay with me now. The idea is that it's, for those who've seen it, there's a Ryan Reynolds interview where he interviews himself, and it's like the bad side of him interviewing the good side of him being a bit of a dick to each side. I'm hoping to try and recreate something like that. It sounds like an interesting concept. I hope that you'd be interested in listening or watching it. It should be a bit of a laugh to film, and that'll be upcoming. I think I'm going to do that one next week, and then the one after that will be Pure Memes. And Pure Memes takes a little bit longer to edit, so I think I'll leave the one for the weekend when I am fully free. So yes, probably either next week, but maybe not the weekend after, or maybe not the weekend after that. So we'll see what happens. Busy times. But that's the plan. Updates in the world at the moment. My God, it's as if coronavirus doesn't exist anymore. It's beautiful. So many people, so much things going on. Life's back to normal. I'm excited. If you can't tell, I'm already. I'm a very extroverted person. So for me to go see people, to see the world, to go to coffee shops, to even I don't care about wearing a mask. I'll happily wear a mask if that makes everyone more comfortable. I'll do it. That's how I roll. And for me personally, I think that let's just make people feel safe, and then we can slowly evolve back into normal society and go from there. And it's so nice to see events like football fans, people back in stadiums. How big of a deal is that? Like, genuinely, how big of a deal is that for people to see their fans? And if you're not a footballer, obviously you're not going to get the vibe, or a football fan for that instance. But even if you're like into other sports, like tennis recently, oh my goodness, it's fantastic at the US Open to see all of these fantastic sort of arenas packed out, and a lot of people, maybe the nervous people, are like, oh Chris, no, too many people in one place after coronavirus is not safe, the numbers are rising. I think we need to be able to get back to our normal lives. I think we need to have some sort of normalcy. We need to have this bold move forward. Maybe it could have been gradually done further, but we've pulled, what's the saying of once the cork's been unpopped, you can't put it back in, sort of thing. And I think that's how we've got to roll now, and we've just got to live with coronavirus and any other virus that could come our way, and take the pandemic as a learning lesson for any future issues, which is kind of cool because it makes our generation sound a little tougher than it actually is. We didn't have to deal with a world war, but we did have to deal with a pandemic, a war on the mind. As they say in Fight Club, our war isn't a physical war, it's a spiritual war. And this is really interesting. I'm currently reading Fight Club at the moment, and from watching it to reading it, it's a very different perspective, but it's beautiful to read because it's the idea of men are lost in society, and it is the one book that and maybe a couple of others like Dead Poet Society. Dead Poet Society is not a book, but there's quite a few books nowadays that are realizing that we do need to have both sides. We have to have the yin and the yang. We have to have the masculine and the feminine. We can't just be one or the other. It has to be the ability to be able to transition from both and be able to tap into either sides, to be able to work well within society. And so for me, when I watch Fight Club or I read Fight Club, it's beautiful to see the main thing here is there's a lot of people lost in society. And in this case, it did an extreme case where you start fighting each other. But it's that ability to tap into that fight style, that hunter rather than gatherer, and really go out. And I think that is something we need to embrace in today's society. And coronavirus, if anything, proves that, because we were all hidden away. We were all hidden, and people want to just get out and do stuff, and the energy's bubbling at the moment. And I think the next 2 years we're going to see such a rise in creativity because people have been able to be away and not be within society. Either that, or people are just going to become hermits. And let's hope not. That's not how we want to see things. We want to see more creative. We want to have that second age of renaissance, and I'm an optimist. So for me personally, I can't see a world any way other than that. So let's be positive and see that's for the future. So crowds are back. Coronavirus is slowly fading away. Let's hope the winter here in Europe isn't as bad as last winter. Let's hope that we can see people for Christmas. My God, a Christmas that's normal. Let's hope for that. That's so, something that we all took for granted. I know I did. Having a Christmas with all of your family, seeing all of your family. I'm embracing that at the moment. And we've got recently, where I live in the middle of nowhere, my aunt and uncle have recently moved down, and it's a game changer realizing that they're literally a 2-minute walk away from you. I've never had that in my life. I've never had family who are a 2-minute walk. Everyone's always been scattered around, and it's actually really nice being able to bump into people who are your family. And it's kind of this. I used to say this to my friends. I'd love to be able to organise. We all live in one beautiful location, and we all have separate houses that sort of we live in the similar area, and we knock into each other. I love that idea. At the same time, I'm also somebody who loves the idea of traveling to see friends. So it's maybe it's a two-house operation in dreamland. But dreams can become realities. I've realised this, that you don't, again, I refer to Harvey Specter here. I know, fictional character, Chris, what are you doing? But for me personally, I love another quote where he says, "I don't have dreams, I have goals, and we're moving on to the next one." And it's that's kind of, yes. I mean, play the clip.
Dream come true for any lawyer.
I don't have dreams. I have goals. Now it's on to the next one.
Yeah. I mean, it's so beautiful. It's so much fun to think about. Yes, that's the mindset. That's the mindset there, where you have to go for what you want in life. And it's very easy for me to say that because I've come from a white middle class background, and it's, I don't like that classification. It really makes me feel kind of like I'm criticizing myself, and I don't want to do that. But at the same time, I also appreciate that I am very lucky in where I've come from, and who's taught me, and how I speak, and how I sound, and how it's easier for me to do things. So there is that. But at the same time, I'm fascinated by everybody being able to tackle that dream and want to chase what they want, and not have anyone feel that they're being judged in. Well, it's actually mainly our own selves. And in next week's podcast, you'll see this, where I'm talking about this inner voice up here. And that's the inner voice we talk to on a regular basis. A lot of people won't admit that. They will rather not talk about these quite deep conversations that you have with yourself, where it's not actually, a lot of people say they got bullied at school and stuff like that, but the real bully wasn't the bullies, it was yourself. You were terrified. You were, of the judgment of other people. But really, the reality of the situation was much easier than the actual thoughts that you create yourself. You are your own worst enemy. And that's what I meant by the yin and the yang. Within the white of the yin, which is pure light, there is the greatest darkness. And within the yang, there is the greatest light. So within good times, you will find some of the worst times. And within the bad times, you will find some of the best times. Because it's the shining light or the greatest darkness within either contrast. And you have to have both. You cannot have one without the other. And in today's society, it's fascinating to see that we've almost tried to ostracize one block and the other. And you can only be within this area, and you can't be within this area. It's fascinating to see. I saw recently on the news, I think it was the Met Gala. And this is last weekend. This is old news now, but to me, it's fascinating seeing people go there and showing off dresses. And I get it; it's very interesting to people who are into that vibe. It's not my sort of thing, but it's really intriguing to see how people react to it. I think that's my favorite thing, is how there's a lot of like, oh, look at these people, they can afford to go and get invited to the Met Gala, where they show off dresses and stuff like that. And it actually, my favourite thing is the reactions to the Met Gala, because it's so negative and it's so sort of, oh, these people have made it, time to take them down a peg sort of thing. And it's kind of like, oh, it's kind of boring. And I think society's it's increased that sort of resentment towards those who've done well, and we shouldn't be thinking that. And I'm going to bring up Rich Dad Poor Dad again. I'm going to keep bringing up this book because I'm now 200 pages in since we last spoke. I know, it's crazy. I'm reading exponentially faster each time I'm going through this book. There is so much to learn in there. This guy, Robert Kiyosaki, and if I'm saying that name wrong, I'm sorry, but he's not just, I think genius is the wrong word. I would actually say he's altruistic, because he's taken knowledge that he could easily, I mean, he is selling it, but he's also, I mean, I bought that book for £6. Come on, like £6, if you haven't got £6, I mean, I'm sorry, but at the same time, that is the mindset that you should be having, is that we shouldn't be resenting people because they have money or because they're playing by the rules of tax. It should be that we aim to be able to be within that group. and that we need to understand how society is making us realise that we should, one of the things at the Met Gala was, I think it was AOC who had tax the rich. I mean, honey, are you not aware that you are rich? Like, the hypocrisy, and I mean, as I said, I'm a hypocrite, so she probably didn't think anything of it, but it's kind of silly, isn't it? That, tax the rich. We are, you are the rich. Like, this is, well, to me, it's silly, because at the end of the day, you're never going to be able to tax the rich, because there's always going to be sort of loopholes within society that you can place in, and we shouldn't be frowning upon them. We should be saying, let's utilize them. Let's get in there, and we can do it ourselves. And I think it's just merely the knowledge, and I think it's a little bit of ignorance that causes that. Anyway, on to a more positive topic. Like I said, football's back. For those who are not football fans, please tune out right now. I am so sorry. This will only take a couple of minutes, and then you can tune right back in. But Chelsea Football Club, oh my God, I'm so happy right now, guys. I really am. Like, Lukaku's been signed. We have got Sol on loan. We've got a team that just looks just deadly. We won the Champions League. I don't know if I spoke about how happy I was. I was running around the house screaming to my parents, like, we won the Champions League, oh my God. I've talked about this before, but point being is, I'm so proud of my team at the moment. It's been a long, hard slog to get to this point since 2012, basically. It's been around. We've won the Premier League in 2015. It was a very different team, though. I think this team is much more defensive minded, and it's beautiful to see, because if we score goals, we don't concede. It's really interesting to see. And we've got Lukaku banging in the goals at the moment. We look strong in the Champions League. We look strong in the Premier League. And now we have Manchester United coming back stronger than ever. And a lot of people who aren't a fan of Manchester United, I'm not either, but I'm actually glad they're back with strength, because it's going to make it so much sweeter when we beat them. Because it's going to be like the old days when Fergie was in charge. When Chelsea beat Man U when Fergie was in charge, that was the sweetest victories that I ever grew up with. It was the wins of wins, because they were, as I've said before, the game of games. Because Fergie may have been the best manager of all time, but being able to beat him was a sweetness in itself, because it showed that you were able to play amongst the best and beat the best. And that's so much better than beating Man U over the past 5 or 6 years, which has been basically, it's not really a value nowadays. So there's that. And I make a prediction now. I made predictions last year. I didn't think we were going to win the Champions League. This year, I'm optimistic for everything. I think we can go for it all. I think the Premier League is ours for the taking, and I think it's purely how the other teams play. I think Liverpool, Man City, Manchester United and Chelsea, those four, it's going to be any one of them could go for it this year. Liverpool are back full strength with Van Dijk at defence, and they've got Salah and Mane pinging in the goals at the moment, and they've got Jota in reserve as well as Firmino. So again, their team is strong. Man City, I mean, they're without a striker, so actually I predict City, they'll do well, but they won't do as well if they'd bought Harry Kane, for instance. And they would have won the Premier League if they'd got Harry Kane, because it would have been goals and an incredible midfield, as well as a strong defence. So there's that. And Man United have Ronaldo now. So although they did lose to young boys, which is an embarrassment to nature when you have Ronaldo and a strong team. So they should be really reconsidering their tactics. And it may be Ole Gunnar Solskjaer who's the problem. But we'll find out soon enough. Oh, victory sip. Love it. So, football over segment. For those who tuned out for those 2 minutes, I'm back with non-football talking and non-football vibes. So, like I said, you've got the schedule. Life is good at the moment. It's beautiful. I can't believe that it's still September. I know a lot of people will get into that fall vibe around this time of year. I know that's an American word. Autumn for everyone who isn't from the US. The idea of autumn time, I'm looking forward to Halloween, but I'm also loving how it's 21 degrees and we are in the 19th of September, nearing the end of September. So incredible weather for, global warming. If you don't believe in it, I mean, what are you doing? Number one. And number two, it's all around us right now. We're in the United Kingdom, which is commonly rainy and cold this time of year, and we've got beautiful sun. So, look at yourself, take thoughts to yourself, and global warming is real. Like I said, global warming, I mean, obviously not really a laughing matter at the moment, because while coronavirus has been going on, life as we know it has continued to deteriorate for the environment, and in many cases I think it's concerning to say the least, but also there's a lot of improvements. So I'm an optimist. I love that, for instance, my family, they've got solar panels on their house. My friends' families have solar panels on their house. If you have the money, then I would recommend you do that, because you are slowly going to remove the use for fossil fuels and increase the amount of I think it's non-emission produced energy. I think something along those lines. But yeah, I mean, I don't drive, but if I did, I'd try and invest in a Tesla one day. But that's a liability that, again, if you are of my age group, if you are in your mid-20s and you do have money, I would not recommend buying a car right now, because it's not in your assets column. That's a liability. If you're paying monthly payments on a car, and you have an income that can't, if it's more than 10% of your income, rethink it, get rid of it, sell it, and spend only 10%, because that will increase your income. Anyway, I'm not trying to give a lecture here. Sorry, I went into lecture mode. God, I'm turning into my father. But as I was saying, the environment has still been going on while things have been going on, and it was beautiful to see during coronavirus. There was things like the Italian rivers clearing up, the air becoming clearer. So I think we need to also keep in mind, now that we're back to normal, things should, genuinely stay. We should be trying to clean up, and we should be realizing how much of an impact the cars and our general sort of tomfoolery that causes it. So there is that. Moving on to a little bit more light-hearted stuff. One thing that recently I've been watching, I don't know if you guys seen it, but the animated version of The Witcher was fantastic. I watched that recently. I highly recommend it if you haven't watched it. It's one of those sort of shows. I think it's a film, so it's an hour long, and it's like a prequel to the Witcher series, and I really enjoyed it. I had some really interesting characters within there, and had some great action sequences. I loved the speed at the way the witches fight, the use of magic, the use of characters that you really dislike in there as well. Like the female antagonist, my goodness, do you dislike her? And I did love that by the end of it, they didn't even try to give her some sort of redeeming factor. It was just like, yeah, you just disliked her. Her viewpoints were not good, and that was great. You had an antagonist. Too much nowadays, we're trying to redeem our antagonists. We're trying to have, the Joker. Oh, he grew up like this. There's always a backstory to these bad guys. Let's not have a backstory. Let's just make them a bad guy. They're a bad guy. We don't need to know the backstory behind it. No one's that interested. Anyway, so that I was also, what else was there? I was watching, obviously, continuously watching Your Mum's House podcast at the moment. I am religiously listening to Dr. Drew After Dark on Your Mum's House every Friday. It brightens up my Friday afternoon on my work days. It is hilarious. If you haven't listened to it, please go over. Dr. Drew and the Booth Boys, they are such a laugh. It's hilarious hearing people talking about, sexual stuff in the sense of like, oh, I've jerked off and blood's come out, or like, oh no, I've gone to the loo and, phlegm's come out. It's gross, I know, but like, it's interesting hearing about how a doctor, like an actual doctor, sort of prescribes sort of remedies and gives you advice to go see your physician or something along those lines, but with a little bit of humour, and it's always a laugh. I always love the characters of Annie and Nadav on there as well, and how they have they're almost like they could have their own podcasts of their own own personality. They've got so much personality that they're a part of the show, and there's nothing better than having, I don't want to call them side characters because that's a bit of a it's not fair for me to say that, because they're not. They're almost like integral to the part of the show now, and I love stuff like that. I love people who have the side characters become just as strong as the main character, and they're just as interesting, and they've got their own quirks and their own traits, and they've got their own things. I mean, for instance, any one of the producers of the show, literally one of the running gags is like, he doesn't shit for a month. He literally waits till the end of the month, or like every 2 weeks, and then just squats over a loo and then does his business. Like, my goodness, like, gross, I know, but Chris, you're being vulgar, but at the same time it's like fascinating stuff like that. Or you think, Chris, you're being weird, stop talking about this now. And if you're not into that sort of crude humor, then don't go listening to your mum's house. But if you are, I may have set you on a path that you may never be able to come back from. So yes, so your mum's house, animated. You know what, I haven't been watching as much anime as I was when COVID was about. I've been spending a lot more time outdoors. My running practice has been intense recently. It's been a lot of miles. I am going to get 1,000 miles this year. I'm also going to get a marathon. I was meant to run a marathon on Friday, but I've come back down to Bristol, so I've had to postpone that till next weekend. So I'm going to do multiple attempts. My plan is to attempt next weekend. If I fail, it's fine. Do lesser miles the weekend after that, then attempt again, and just keep attempting over and over again until I finally get the time that I want. Currently, I'm running at, I did 17 miles the other day, and it was 2 hours and 20 minutes. So it was around 8 minutes and 11 seconds, give or take, which was really good. I was really pleased with that time, because it's not far off my goal of hitting 3 hours and 30 minutes, or 3 hours and 29 minutes for a marathon. So that's really intriguing to me, and I'm really hopeful in the sense that I can hit this goal that I've had for such a long time. Also, getting 1,000 miles by the end of the year, it really is. I mean, I don't joke about my fitness. I love it. For those who are as interested as I am, you'd understand the sort of relationship I have with it. It's not something that I don't force myself to work out. I don't force myself to go running. I love it. It is part of me now. I've been doing running for 7 years. I've been doing weights for 3 or 4. So it's this joy. It brings joy to my life. So if you're looking for stuff like that, if you love reading books, if you love art, if you love doing things, I'm not going to tell you to go work out if you don't love it, but I'm also saying it's so good for you. You know, my heart, I don't like to say things that, but I don't get ill. It's great. I mean, I used to get ill all the time when I was younger, and I used to be that kid who was asthmatic, who friggin' like coughed over anything. It was like, couldn't even do cross country because he was so like just like out of breath and unfit for that matter. So yeah, and I was barely able to play football because I was just unfit and just unable to, and I was like fragile. There's a common theme of me growing up of being on crutches. My friends from the early days of primary school and secondary school would know me as the kid who would literally just be breaking his ankle like every other year basically. Thankfully, I've kind of sort of solidified up after that, and nowadays I'm a little bit tougher than I was back then, but that doesn't really go for much. So let's say I'm a lot tougher on that point. But what I'm trying to get at here is that if you want to get into this area of life, if you want to be physically fit and then also tackle your day job or your goals or your dreams, and you want to get physically fit, it should become part of you. It shouldn't be forced upon you. And if you hate it, then there's almost like, if you want to be mentally tough and you want to be able to get through this life in a way where you are positive and optimistic, then it makes it a lot easier. But yeah, anyway, enough lecturing on that part. I'm loving it. I think that life at the moment is kind of beautiful in so many ways. Like I said, my running's going great. My workouts are becoming tough, if I'm honest. I'm mentally finding it tough. So I am going to incorporate a few new things. I'm going to introduce some new foods. I have felt that I've had a little bit too many sweets recently. I have had, my mum made a beautiful carrot cake the other day. My sister and I destroyed it within a week. It was gone, it demolished. And for those who know as well, my mum makes cakes and fudge and anything that's naughty, and she's probably the best at it that I've ever met. You can go to any bakery, I bet you my mum's cooking will beat it. And that's not a brag, that's just facts. Like, I've been to many different countries. My mum's cooking, and if you've had her cooking, you'll fully understand why. It's extremely hard to beat. So, yes, Mum, if you're listening, good on you. Life accomplishment right there. You've kicked ass on multiple continents. But for the rest of you, yes, if you ever get the chance and you're ever over at my house, do ask. You're always welcome. Anyway, moving on to less foodie topics. I will be restricting myself from foods like that and trying to force myself to get back onto a little bit more of a rigid regime than I already do. And I think going on holiday for a week and relaxing my diet a little bit can have that effect. So there is that. But don't be too hard on yourselves. There is the climb back. There is I also have that mental cog in my brain where I was like, oh, I haven't worked out. Fuck, I need to work out. Damn. Like there's that click in my brain, and you need to be a little bit more, right, I'm going to do it. It's fine. It's just the consistency of doing it. And some days are harder than others, and you just have to crank out that workout. And it may not be as good as the others, but you have to do it, and you have to get it done for yourself, not for anyone else, just for you. It's that mental. And also, I have that, oh no, I'm going to lose gains. I'm going to lose the gains. And for those who know, Ronnie Coleman and the memes that come out of him is lightweight, baby. It's that idea of just consistent weightlifting, and you worry that if you take one day off that you're going to lose your muscle mass, and so that is the thing. But I'm going on again. I'm talking about life at the moment. For me, it's a lot of similar stuff at the moment for the next, like I've said in the previous podcast, the next few months. I've got an agenda of what I'm going to cover on the podcast. Like I said, I'm going to do Inner Thoughts podcast. I'm going to do a memes part 2. I'm going to try and go see some guests over the next couple of months. I'm going to organise that. I'm also going to try and incorporate a couple more history podcasts for those who like history. I'm going to try and tackle bringing on some previous guests who I haven't spoken to and I have to get back on the podcast. I'm also going to try some new stuff, new subjects that I'm not too sort of strong with. I've said this before. I have tackled a few so far. I think relationships would be really interesting because I'm not a relationship guy, but I would love to sort of tackle it and read up on it and read what people say and stuff like that. So it'd be intriguing to listen. And psychology, I'm fascinated by that, so I'd love to do a podcast on that as well. So lots to come. This has just been an update podcast, what things have been going on, what I've been doing. I'm going to be doing a lot of visits to different places. I didn't even mention that I've been going back and forth to Lulworth Cove and Durdledore and the Jurassic coastline a lot over the past couple of weeks. It's always beautiful down there, it really is. And visiting with friends and going down there, it's an absolute pain in the ass for me personally because I don't drive. So getting down there either on my own is absolutely painful via bus or via train, but going with people who drive a lot easier. So there is that downside to not driving. But it is watching the sun set as you watch as the ocean comes in and out and in and out. It just puts you at peace, man. There's a zen in life, and that zen is what I'm constantly seeking, that peace, inner peace, and that sun setting over the horizon. Beautiful way to end the podcast. I think we'll end it here. This has been a Taylor's Tales podcast. This has been not Chris's Corner. And as always, I shall see you this time next week. Bye now.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!